Hello, I'm Katie from the Faulkner County Library, and we are here today with the DIY crafting where we are going to make a Star Garland. I don't think you're going to need anything from your supply box today, so we're going to jump right into the activity kit. You have a package of air dry clay, some string, a cookie cutter, and your light strands. Now, I will say that today's activity is going to get a little bit messy, so make sure you're working in an area where you have the space to spread out and that isn't going to be a big deal to have to clean up later. So the first thing you're going to do is get your air dry clay out of the package, and it has been packaged up to try and stay as workable as long as possible, but it might be a little bit dry. You can just add some water. You can either put your hands in water and then work with wet hands, or you can just add water directly to the clay. You're going to work with that for a little while until you get it rolled out in a workable area. So that is where I am now and where we're going to go ahead and begin. So you're going to flatten your clay, and the thinner the clay is that you work with, the faster it will dry. You can do this whatever you prefer though. So you're going to get your clay rolled out, and then you're going to use your cookie cutter to cut out some stars for your garland. Just like if you were making cookies. And if you notice like that, the star kind of broke a little bit when I pulled it out of the cookie cutter. You can just piece it back together real quick. And as you work, just keep flattening your clay so that it's not super thick. If you have a rolling pin at home, you can also use that, and that might help with this process a little bit. So we're going to keep cutting the stars. And we're making a garland, so just decide about what the length you would like the garland to be. And that's going to be about how many stars you can cut out. I'm just going to keep going until I run out of clay. If you want a shorter garland, or if you want thicker stars, you can do that, and then you can use your clay for something else. You know, as I like to remind you, you can make the project your own in whatever way you would like to do. And any mishaps along the way, you can just piece them back together. And this garland that you make, you can decide where you're gonna put it. Are you gonna put it in your room? Are you gonna share it with your family and maybe put it in a family space? It can go wherever you would like. When your clay starts getting a little crumbly, it's time for a little bit more water added. So I'm just gonna put a little drop. Just grab up some of this to work with. Some of you may have made clay projects in school or at a pottery shop or somewhere. And a lot of times when you make clay products, you have to put them in the kiln where they have to get fired and heat it up at a high temperature in order to dry, and then you have to do a glaze. But this air dry clay is just gonna dry with the air. So you don't have to go through the process of putting it through a kiln, which is nice and convenient. So I've got my clay back to a workable consistency, and I'm going through the process again of rolling it out and flattening it, getting it ready for more shapes to be cut out of. Some of this you have to put a little bit of muscle into, but that just makes the end product. You can be even prouder of it, knowing all of the effort that you went through to make your Star Garland. If you happen to add a little bit too much water at any point when you're adding water, you're just gonna wanna mix it up a little bit more. And it'll get back to the consistency that you want. Or if you put a little bit too much water, you can try and let it dry out just a little bit before you start working with it again. I've almost filled up my workspace with stars, so I'm gonna do one more really quick, and then I'm gonna go ahead and get started putting together my garland. Actually, I'm gonna let it dry a little bit before I do that, just for a few minutes. And then if I need some more stars, I'll come back later and add some more. So I'm gonna set this over to the side and go ahead and start working. So before you let your stars dry too much, you are gonna wanna add some holes for your string. And the way I am doing that is using the paintbrush from your supply box. You can use the paintbrush, you can use a pencil, a pen, anything you would like. And we're just gonna add it. I'm adding it to the top of each star. And if your clay has dried up a little bit and you start noticing any kind of cracking or anything during this process, you can just add a little bit of water. You can get your water on your hands and then just pat the stars, and that works really well to get them back to a workable consistency. And if you have any issues like I just had, just pinch it back together and it should be fine. I have noticed that if I work kind of at the end of each point, it seems to be a little more stable there instead of trying to work at the very top where there's less clay to work with. And once you get all of the holes, we're going to continue letting our stars dry for just a little while. Okay, so the last thing you saw me do was get ready to I'll put the holes in the stars to get ready to hang them on the string. And I am back with a little bit of a failed product, but also some advice for you to make your experience go better than mine. So usually at the end, I like to show you a completed project that looks exactly how it should look. And I do not have that for you today. This is about as close as we get. As you can tell, I lost a few stars in the process and had a little bit of difficulty putting my lights on the garland. And so I want your project to go smoother than this. So instead of showing you a finished product and saying, here's what you should have, instead I'm going to tell you a little bit of advice that might help your project. So first of all, I put the holes up near the top points of the stars. I would recommend that you put the holes more in the middle of the star where there's more of the star to support actually hanging onto the garland and then also the weight of the garland from the other stars. So you're going to want to put your hole in the middle of the star. Secondly, I went ahead and put the twine through the stars first and then was going to wire through the stars. My stars are too fragile to get the wire through them again. They really, like the least amount that I can handle the stars is pretty much all they can take at this point. So I would recommend that you put your lighted wire over the twine first and make a long strand of lighted twine and then strand all of that through the stars. And so consider that when you're making the holes on the stars that you do make the hole wide enough that the strand and the lights can easily go through them. And just be sure that when you are working with your stars, you recognize that they are extremely fragile. You need to be very, very careful with them. And so try not to handle them until they are completely dry. And then when you think they're completely dry, probably wait even a little bit longer after that just to make sure, because you really do not want to work with stars, because when we were shaping them, it was easy to just kind of pinch back in place if anything happened. But when they get to a somewhat dry or a mostly dry format, there's really nothing you can do to save them except start over from the beginning. So remember that your stars are really fragile, that they can't take a lot of weight. So you're going to want as much of the star to be able to support the rest of the garland as you can. And then it's going to be easiest for you to strand the wire and the twine at the same time instead of trying to go two different times and do the twine and then add the lights. So that is my advice for you on making sure that your lighted garland is a positive experience and that you end up with a product that you are happy with and that you can use and that you can share with yourself and others. So thank you for tuning in to this DIY crafting program, and I hope you have good luck in making your lighted star.